Welcome to the Professionals of the Inland Empire show with your host, John Tulac.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Professionals of the Inland Empire. I'm John Tulac, international business attorney in Claremont. I'm the host of this show, which is fairly new. This is a special edition because we're not featuring today one of our outstanding professionals in the community who I've been interviewing in the first episodes. This is someone who is a professional to be, someone who is actually still in high school. And he has something to say about an important topic that has bearing on what we do and how we do it in the Inland Empire. So today, a warm welcome to Ryan Ho from Webb High School. How you doing, Ryan?
Hi, I'm doing well, thank you.
Super. So tell me a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, how you chose Webb School, and where you are currently
Of
near
course.
graduation.
Yeah, so I'm Ryan, that's my name. I was born in Hong Kong. That was where I was raised until I came to Claremont, California for high school here at the Webb Schools 4 years ago. Right now I'm a senior, and yes, I've lived in two places, Hong Kong and Claremont, and I also love to travel a lot. So during my breaks, I enjoy traveling to different parts of the world using public transport again. So yeah.
And how did you end up at Webb School?
Oh yeah. So I guess how I ended up at the web schools was just because I wanted to explore education outside of Hong Kong, especially because this was around the time of our protest that happened in 2019. I came to the US in 2021. So I guess America to a lot of people in Hong Kong is the land of opportunity. And a lot of Hong Kong people are actually moving to the UK, but I decided to look into the US because I like the innovation that's going on here. So that's why I'm here now.
Super. So I understand that you have become a self-styled advocate for public transportation. So how did that
Correct.
develop and tell me what that means to you?
Pardon, could you repeat the last part?
Sure. Tell me how you became a public transportation advocate, and what does that mean? And tell us what it
Yeah,
means.
for sure. So growing up in Hong Kong, I'm not sure if you guys have seen pictures of Hong Kong, but we're like a super dense, super packed city. And no one needs a car in Hong Kong. And from a young age, we're raised to use our buses, minibuses, ferries, subways to get around pretty much anywhere we want in the city. And yeah, that's just the environment I grew up around. If I needed to go to school, I could just hop on the bus. If I had to go to the mall, I could just hop on the subway system, which came every at a frequency of every maybe 2, 3 minutes. So yeah, I just really enjoy this freedom of having public transport to take me basically anywhere I want to go. And compared to automobiles, public transport is really flexible and free because anyone could take public transport. If you have any impairment of your vision, you could take public transport. If you're a little kid, before you could drive a car, you could take public transport to go places. If you're a senior, you could also take public transport. So that's what impresses me a lot about public transport and what continues to draw me into using public transport to travel the world, especially because I feel like whenever I use public transport, I really get a deeper view into a city or a country because when you're riding on a bus, you get to meet locals, you get to experience the nature of a place in a way that's not possible if you just drive your own car, if you're just trapped within your own bubble. And that's what fascinates me so much.
It's interesting that you mentioned getting to meet people that way. I remember in my experience in Hong Kong, especially on the ferry, everybody was talking to one another, which I enjoyed immensely. Went back and forth on that several times on the first visit that I was there. But in some parts of the world, especially on the underground in the tube, as they call it in London, unless you know the person next to you, you don't make eye contact and you don't talk to them. Kind of same thing is true in New York. So
Yeah,
is it friendly and where is it not?
I think it varies a lot. In fact, I feel like I might even say that in Hong Kong or a lot of parts of Asia, like Japan and Korea, it's even more common to stay quiet on these public transport because it's just so normal. It's such a normal part of our lives. More people use public transport than people who drive. So especially when the culture there is usually a lot more reserved in Asia. I feel like in my own experience, uh, it's usually a lot more reserved and quiet on public transport in Asia. But when I'm in the US, let's say, whenever I hop on a bus, it's almost an opportunity for conversation because here the the culture makes it such that it's normal to strike up small talk with someone, learn about someone's story. Just like how I met you, for say, I don't think it would be so easy for that to happen in Hong Kong or Japan. And I definitely
Of course, we
had.
weren't on a bus. We were at a Rotary meeting.
Okay, yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, but I guess my point is that that has to do a lot more with uh the customs of a place because um yeah, in Hong Kong if I just try and strike up a random conversation with someone, it might come off as pretty strange. Yeah. What might actually make the difference though is if I look visually different, if I'm like a traveler from another country, a foreigner to a place, and then I go strike up a conversation with someone, then there's actually some reason behind the conversation. And maybe that was why you were able to have a successful conversation with someone on the ferry.
Maybe so.
Perhaps, yeah.
So tell me about your experiences in public transportation here in the Inland Empire. Has it been good? It's been bad? It's been somewhere in between? What's it like?
Yeah, so I guess I should start with why exactly I have to take public transport. It's because I go to a boarding school here and we don't have our own vehicles. So usually our only way of going off campus would be by foot or if someone else could drive us. And me being the traveler I am, I really like exploring places and I like having that freedom. So just as I do wherever I go, I looked up all the bus routes that were around the area in Claremont, and I just decided one day that I would bring a friend and hop on one of them just to go somewhere random. I think the first place I went was actually Montclair Place. Yeah, so I walked down to the um about 20 minutes from my school where there was a bus station, and then I took uh bus 188 by Foothill Transit to Montclair. And it was definitely a very different experience from what I was used to because here, um, you go to the bus station and usually you don't actually see people because it's just such an underutilized system. A lot of people just decide to drive cars. And yeah, of course, the frequency is also a lot less. Um, I the bus 188, it comes at every half hour when in other parts of the world it might come every 5 minutes. So I think these are all reasons for why public transport is not as used in this area. But for those people who actually rely on public transport, I would say that it still is a working system that is connected, and I have had success going wherever I need to, even though it might take double or triple the amount of time as it does by car.
Okay. How about the Metrolink? Have you tried that or the Gold Line?
Yeah, I've definitely tried the Metrolink. I I actually really enjoy the Metrolink, especially because recently they've released a program called the Student Adventure Pass. That means that if we register with our student IDs, we have free tickets. And that's been amazing because it's given me a lot of flexibility on places want uh I could go. I mean the Metrolink from Claremont connects us all the way from San Bernardino uh, to downtown, and there's no traffic. And my favorite feeling on the Metrolink is always when we zoom on the highway on I-10. past all the cars that are stuck in traffic. I think that's my favorite part because it, for once in the US, I see an advantage to taking um, the public transport. And I think it's just a really comfortable ride usually. You don't have to worry about traffic, the car in front of you suddenly braking. Instead, you can just sit down and chill in your seat, enjoy the passing views. I actually really like doing my homework on the train sometimes because I could be studying, and when I'm bored of that, I could just look out the window and pay attention to what like the passing scenery. And I think that's something very special that you don't really get when you drive on the freeway, for say.
Not if you want to stay safe. You can't pay attention to the surroundings and you have to pay attention to the road.
Exactly.
I certainly enjoy watching the world go by when I take the train. How about the Silver Streak from the Montclair Plaza, which is a double bus that goes
Oh, yeah.
into Los Angeles? Have you tried that?
Yeah, actually, I have tried the Silver Streak once. And the reason I ended up taking the Silver Streak that time was because I missed the train. And on weekends, the Metrolink is as sparse as maybe every 3 hours. So there's one train at 9 a.m. going to LA, and another one, the next one would be 12. And I probably missed the 9 a.m. train. So instead of canceling my whole trip, I decided to try out the Silver Streak. But I do have to say that for me, where I'm coming from, Claremont, the Silver Streak is not as convenient because it stops in Montclair and then the next stop would be Pomona. Um, but nevertheless, I still think it serves a very big community because for people who don't benefit from the student pass on the Metrolink, the Silver Streak is much more affordable. The one time I took the Silver Streak, I've met a lady who comes from El Salvador. She actually doesn't speak English, but we were able to talk about how helpful the Silver Streak has been to her because for a couple dollars, she's able to travel on an express bus on the freeway all the way from the Inland Empire to LA, where she has to go. And it actually does surprise me how fast it zooms on the freeway because typically buses here are really slow. They take the local road, they stop every couple streets. So yeah, I guess my experience on the Silver Streak has been pretty positive, and I think it does serve a really important purpose for the communities it serves.
Okay. And so one other thing I'm thinking of, how about the LA County Fair? I know there's a bus in Claremont that gets you to the fairgrounds on the south side of the fairgrounds. Have you ever done that in the 4 years you've been at Webb?
Yeah, unfortunately, I've never had the chance to go to the LA County Fair. I do know that in previous years, the Metrolink San Bernardino line, they actually had an extra station specifically for the Fairplex during the fair. But this year, I did notice that it's not a thing anymore. Instead, the only option to travel to the Fairplex by public transport would be a bus by the Foothill Transit. So I don't know exactly why that's the case. I remember in the past, I did see people get taking the Metrolink to the fair. I think that was a really uh, it was a really good service because that way people coming in from LA, downtown LA, wouldn't need their cars. Whereas right now, the Foothill Transit bus going there only serves a really close distance. I don't recall off the top of my head where it serves, but it's a short distance route. And I think that discourages people from using public transport to get to a fair, especially because this fair is supposed to serve the entire county.
Okay, so now as an advocate, you can put your advocate hat on. What would you advocate for in the Inland Empire? If you could influence the making of policy on public transportation, what would you urge our county officials and our state officials to do to improve public transport in the Inland Empire?
Hmm.
You can let it rip, right?
Yeah, I need to think a bit about this one because usually I just take public transport. I just yeah, I don't really think about how it should be changed that much because usually I like to just experience a place through the public transport. And I guess the experience I've gotten here is that public transport isn't the fastest, but it's still it's still a system that works and serves the populations that it needs to serve. So in terms of how to make it better, I think some of the major challenges about public transport in the US or LA would be just how spread out things are because in a lot of parts of Asia, things are really condensed, which means that building a couple lines of public transport would actually serve a very big population because a lot of the final traveling could be done by foot. Instead, right now, the public transport here had like to serve the same amount of population, we need a lot more routes. And I guess that comes at the compromise of the frequency of services. And when services are infrequent or unreliable, that causes people to not use the system anymore. So I would say increasing this frequency, but then also that's difficult to do um, because of the constraints of resources. Uh, I I think something that I really like about public transport here would be the real-time tracking. That's something that actually is not seen in a lot of parts of Asia because of how frequent and reliable services are. But here, it's very good for me to be able to just pull up my phone, open the transit app, and see exactly where the bus is on the map. That way, I could predict where the bus is and time out my walk so that I arrive at the station exactly when the bus would arrive. So I guess the improvement I would suggest is to maybe not increase the frequency, but to increase the reliability of this frequency because there have been multiple times when I get to the bus station and then I realize that the originally scheduled bus has just been canceled and I end up having to wait half an hour more or an hour more. And that is very discouraging towards public transport users, especially when it's a very cold or very hot day. It's just very hard to plan out a trip if you don't know exactly when the bus is coming. So yeah, maybe working on somehow increasing the reliability of bus schedules that are already posted and also making sure that all buses have that real-time tracking ability, perhaps even helping certain populations learn how to access this real-time tracking. Um, I have been to a couple bus stations in Pasadena where they have installed some real-time tracking devices on their bus stations so that users could just go and hit a button and it would display when the next bus would come. I think that would be very helpful for uh, a lot of citizens who may not have access to phones or may not know how to use the real-time tracking function.
Okay, well, those are great suggestions. And coming from a user, I would think that the policy planner should take note of these observations and act accordingly. So, Ryan, you're graduating really soon. What comes next?
Yeah, so I actually plan on attending Stanford University. I have not decided exactly what I will pursue yet once I arrive at Stanford, but I do think I want to begin with engineering, just looking into different fields in engineering because I enjoy problem solving. I like thinking critically, and I think with a profession in engineering, I would be well equipped to tackle um, different problems or situations that we face in the world, including perhaps public transport.
It sounds like that would be a good area for you to focus on. That's terrific. But thank you so much, Ryan, for being my guest today on this special edition of Professionals of the Inland Empire. And we'll be looking to see you join our ranks in a handful of years. Thanks again, Ryan. Once again, this is Professionals of the Inland Empire. I'm John Tulac, International Business Attorney in Claremont, and one of the group leaders in the area for Provisors, the premier networking group in the country. So until next time, so long for now.
Thanks for watching or listening to, depending on the case, the Professionals of the Inland Empire show with your host, John W. Tulac. If you have a suggestion for a guest, email him at jwtulac, that's JWTULAC @gmail.com. jwtulac @gmail.com.